Hello and welcome to an introduction and product demo of Infor's PLM Discrete version 10.2 with an interface to Infor SyteLine ERP. I am Brian Rockwell, PLM Solutions Architect at Rockwell Consults. Today we will be focused on looking at PLM and how it can provide a solution to some manufacturing issues, as well as peek at SyteLine to see how this can translate into meaningful benefits for you and your company. To start with, I will give a brief introduction of myself and my background. That will be followed by a few case studies about typical engineering and production problems, and then summarize how PLM can help mitigate those issues. After that, we will review the overall PLM concept and where it fits with your company. We then will review how a connection between PLM and ERP can benefit your company. Afterwards, we will take a high-level look at PLM to review item and bill of material management. We will then transition into a few screenshots of the workflow or business process in PLM. Once that is complete, we will wrap up with a review of PLM and SyteLine to see how they work together. A live demo will show you a high-level review of PLM and a step-by-step walkthrough of how the PLM to SyteLine data transfer is performed. So to get started, I am Brian Rockwell. I received a Bachelor's of Science in Chemical Engineering from Rutgers University. I've been a project manager for over 10 years and have been certified as a project manager since 2007. After working as a product development engineer in hydrogen fuel cells, I moved into FDA compliance and system validation of chromatography data systems. It was there that I learned about the SDLC, or software development lifecycle, and to track what is done on a project. As they say, if it isn't written, it didn't occur. I moved from chromatography data systems to LIMS, or Laboratory Information Management Systems, with emphasis in FDA systems and some mining experience overseas. However, since working at Infor, I have moved into PLM, dealing with both process as well as discrete manufacturing for over 7 years. I've worked several software implementation projects as a project manager, even internationally, in various industries, providing me an ample knowledge of operations and how concepts in one industry can translate to others. Part of that international experience does come from the fact I speak fluent Spanish. So let's look at the problem. What is it that causes you frustration and angst when dealing with your day-to-day operations? I will go out on a limb here, but I feel I can say with confidence that the biggest headache is the lack of communication or the misinterpretation of information. Too many times, someone leaves out a critical aspect that changes everything. If you decide to order a pizza, it is implied that you will receive it in a box. There is no need to specifically ask for it, but that is because you have asked for pizza many times. When buying a super collider, I think you may have a few more questions about what comes in the package and some of the details regarding what it is you are purchasing. Related to your business, the engineering processes are critical to receiving and providing information to many different parties. Since change management needs a clear picture, why not put it all in the same location? Many customers have some paper-based ECO process and are adamant the form still needs to be routed to the different approvers. I can usually win them over once I show that all the fields they find on the form can be found or created in PLM as part of the workflow. When this occurs, suddenly the process is searchable and trackable. Maybe the issues are further downstream. This could be with the handoff from engineering to production, or within production itself. Again, it's how the data are presented and distributed to give the best picture of what is required as possible. Maybe the issues are regional, or within the business itself, or even a language issue. There are so many communication issues that can cause problems. Finally, maybe there are some regulatory or compliance organizations that require specific criteria to meet a certification or meet a standard. All of this will lend to you wanting to bang your head on the closest solid object. So let's look at a couple fictitious scenarios that should have a vein of truth in them and have you nodding your head in agreement. If engineer A and engineer B are both making changes to the same part and the part is stored on a shared drive, nothing will stop them both from working on it without some control. We can see here that the changes will be saved only for the last. Overriding engineer A's changes will not bother engineer B in the least until we get to production. Both claim they made their changes, but the results say differently. The money lost is all irrelevant because the fact that the problem is there, and if nothing is done, it will occur again. Finally, because there is no control, engineer B has no idea engineer A is even working on the same part. Moving along, we have a different situation here. The whiz-bang may be the best widget in the world, with customers clamoring for its release. Promises are made, however deadlines slip, and slowly the problem snowballs until significant capital is invested to eke something out, to stave off the wolves, so to speak. Several employees rake in heavy overtime bonuses that could have been avoided. I'm sure this never occurs at your company, so this is really just an anecdotal story, nothing more. Here we have something a little stickier and more difficult to root out. Bob may be the best, but if there is significant friction between him and Frank, this will always be an issue with no intervention. I suspect this is somewhat extreme, but maybe you are sighing and rolling your eyes remembering a particular experience in the past. Regardless, these situations are real thematically, even if I've changed the names to protect the guilty. So what is PLM? It stands for Product Lifecycle Management and is a business strategy to control and improve product design from inception to retirement. PLM incorporates company personnel, devices, vendors, customers, and yes, even software. Now, how can a company benefit from PLM? Let me start with a simple example. Being first to market has significant competitive advantages. Consider the Apple iPhone. Because it was the first smartphone to hit the market, it became and still is the mainstream phone, although some may argue it may not be the best anymore. That, however, is a discussion for another day. One of the major benefits is the ability to see the product earlier than what is traditionally accepted. We touched on this earlier, but later in the presentation we will provide some examples of how this is handled from a PLM perspective. Interdepartmental communication is enhanced, and management can track process and design metrics and process performance without the need to start an inquisition or pull teeth. Product changes don't simply disappear because they are buried under an engineer's pile of papers. This also helps process performance by improving how each user can see their workload and provides notifications real time. This in turn reduces the release time and breaks down some of the proverbial silos that seem to build up over time with traditional processes. Most companies need to maintain compliance or regulation to some government entity, most notably the ISO 9001 quality standard. There are certain requirements that must be met in order for that compliance to be maintained. I actually wrote a document regarding how PLM can help obtain or maintain ISO 9001 on my blog, and if you are interested, you can follow the link on my blog at the end of the presentation. Now, as you begin to improve visibility and processes for your product, the quality will improve and confidence you are producing the best product you can will rise. The error cycles will diminish and you will see an overall improvement in the way things are done. This increases client confidence and business credibility and gives management ease of mind they can set and meet product launches. Okay, so let's revisit the scenarios from before. How can PLM help with these issues? With the first scenario, PLM only allows one user to work on a part at a time. It's kind of like a library, where it allows a reader to check out a book, but then stops anyone else from trying to check it out again. When the reader checks in the book, it then frees it up for the next reader. This is similar in PLM, where the user takes ownership of the part and is allowed to make changes. Others can review any changes if they have access, but cannot make changes until the owner relinquishes that ownership. Furthermore, if Engineer B tries to make changes, the system notifies her that Engineer A has it checked out, giving her the ability to check with Engineer A to see what changes are being made and how long it will take. It may even be that the changes are somehow related, and with a little collaboration, they can combine the two into a single ECO, thereby reducing downtime and getting both changes into production's hands faster. Here Whizbang is getting rave reviews, but without cohesive communication and monitoring, time will slip and you have a major problem on your hands. However, if management is aware of the situation, they can take steps to remediate earlier than later. This is where PLM reporting tools can expose slip-ups and cover-ups. Now, cover-ups may or not be intentional, depending on the business environment, but either way, this is an easier method for management to keep a better pulse on what is occurring. This one is definitely difficult to manage, regardless of what the strategy is or what can be done. However, by providing a tool that handles the requests, an impersonal task is sent to Bob, where Frank is taken out of the equation for the most part. I doubt PLM will solve the issue between the two, but at least there is a different avenue to explore than what is being done currently. Okay, to see what PLM does, let's take a look at this study. Now, I don't want to bore you with a bunch of the statistics, but numbers do help quantify what the realized benefit can be. As you can see, most respondents indicated that PDM, or product data management of the actual data, is a requirement. This may be a given since it is most seen as the purpose of PLM, although it is only a fraction of what PLM does or should do. Now, of all the ones noted, there is only one that I don't necessarily agree with. Project program management, in my book, does not fall into the PLM realm. The only reason I say that is because there are other project management tools out there to handle how the project is run. Since PLM specifically states product management, I understand most products are seen as a project or are at times geared for a specific customer or whatever. However, all the other capabilities noted here are definitely related to the product and should be considered important for any manufacturer. The one piece I see that is missing from the study is the ability for PLM to interface with ERP, as that is probably the single greatest benefit for the business as a whole. I have seen businesses move to PLM over PDM for that alone. For this reason, I want to look at how PLM creates that handshake between CAD and ERP. I attempted to show how each department will interact with the various systems, but it may not be completely accurate. Just keep in mind that the thicker arrows are the ones that are to indicate more interaction, and the thinner arrows signify a minor role. As you can see, there's a two-way road between CAD and PLM and ERP. Data goes both ways depending on your setup. SimData classifies the benefits of integration as the following: ensuring consistency and use of product plant-related information by personnel in organizations throughout the enterprise. Reducing the time to bring new and better products to market at a lower cost while improving quality. Creating and using common product-related terminology and processes throughout the business. Let's assume Plant A has an instance of SyteLine and Plant B has another instance of SyteLine. With PLM, you can maintain the same design information in both, or maintain an item master and have a manufactured product in one and a transferred product in the other. Again, it is all contingent on how you set it up. According to SimData, there was a 75% reduction in the time, cost, and errors associated with the rekeying of data from one system to another. They also reported that there was a 75% reduction in BOM errors as BOMs were maintained in a consistent manner across both systems. Best in class are considered those who have adopted PLM and are aggressively seeking process improvement and system integration. The other two really don't need discussion other than to note that it changes from best in class. I suspect you are looking to be in the first category, but may be struggling in either the second or third. How can you remedy your situation or better your operational statistics? This is a question you will need to answer. For now, I hope this will at least give you a yardstick by which you can measure your company's performance. Let us shift gears a little and review how PLM can handle process and workflows. Here is a simplified org chart using the Avengers as a resource model. I represent a few of the departments that normally get involved in some new product or engineering change process. There may be others involved as well, but for now, we can use this. Now to review how the workflow controls what is done. We will not specify who makes the request because it could come from many sources, but we can assume that eventually it lands in the engineering manager's inbox and he will need to review the change request. If he likes what he sees, he can send it on to the engineer for change or can reject it back to the requester to clarify or simply to say that the change is not valid. Either way, it is logged and can be referred to in the future should someone request that same change again. If the change is valid, the engineer can make the required changes and forward the process to the peer review or back to the engineering manager. Once the change is approved, typical processes would simply release to production. PLM is somewhat different in that it allows others to put their eyes on the change, such as the production manager and finance. Now, whether they actually reject it or not is really not the issue, but allowing them to review prior to release is the crux of the matter. This way, they can potentially spot something overlooked and raise a flag. This now shortens the change cycle and hopefully accelerates the change process. Not one cycle, but the overall change that was required. Once the different parties are happy with the change, it can be sent to SyteLine. Additional steps can be taken, but the ECO can end here as well. Again, as I have said many times, this is all based on your particular setup. Okay, so let's start looking at PLM and seeing what it does. Here's a simple exploded view of a product I illustrate through eDrawings, which is the SoutSystems free SolidWorks CAD viewer. We can see several parts, sub-assemblies, and the overall product. Here's that same bill of material seen in PLM. If you notice the item list on the left shows the items and assemblies as a collection of items. There is no structure at all. On the right, however, the bill of material is set up in the actual structure to see the parent-to-child relationship. This setup also lends handily to creating, adding, modifying, or removing assemblies and/or components from the bill of material by dragging and dropping from the left side to the right side. Assuming we have a change that needs to be released, we can set up the workflow as seen here. This is a template that can be used repeatedly for each release, thereby creating consistency for your release process. What you see here are user steps which are assigned to a specific user with a task to perform. This may be as simple as reviewing the information provided to an actual laundry list of steps that are needed to be performed. Either way, the process does not advance until the user completes and approves that task. Once the task is complete, it moves to the next step. If the step is like step 3, it performs some system function like checking in and attaching items to PLM before moving to the next step. Each one of these steps is configurable and allows significant leeway in adapting to your specific needs. Here is how it would look inside PLM after creating the workflow, or business process as it is called in PLM, and after attaching an item to the ECO process. We are assuming that this is the part in question, and it will be modified throughout the process. If you notice, the business process is still in an undefined state, meaning that it has not been launched just yet. This allows the one launching the process to perform any changes that are allowed in PLM based on their user role. They may reassign a particular step to someone specific. Those steps that cannot be changed will be the ones highlighted in red. These are system steps that will check out the attached items, and after change completion and approval, will check in and send the change to SyteLine. All of the details regarding the permissions of what is accepted and prevented are configurable in PLM. Now that the process has been launched, we see several things. First, the status of the business process is now in progress. That means that it is now an active business process and is visible to others with active tasks. Second, the item attached to the business process is now highlighted in yellow to indicate it is locked to the workflow. Third, the item is still released, signifying that it is still not checked out, just attached. The yellow is currently the only indication that there is anything happening. Fourth, the first step is blue, letting the users know that is the active step. At any time, users can log in and view the status of the workflow to determine the current progress of the ECO. Remember how visibility is critical to removing roadblocks and bottlenecks? The workflow has now progressed to the stage that the attached item has now been checked out. The released item with revision 0002 is now set to a status of under change, and is now obvious to others that some change is in process which may require review to determine what is going on. The new uprevved item with the revision 0003 has a status of undefined. Both are still attached to the business process, but the item under change is mostly along for the ride at this point. Usually it is for reference purposes should you need to review the original item for changes made. Also displayed is the task list. This is how users will manage their assignments received and keep track of work that needs to be performed in PLM. Now we have progressed through the change completion and approval and have checked the new undefined item with revision 0003 back into PLM. It is set to released, and the original item with revision 0002 is now a cyan color to indicate it has been superseded. The item with revision 0003 is still yellow because it is still attached to the business process. At this point, the item is ready to be sent to SyteLine. Here we have the completed ECO, and the business process has a status of completed. All steps are white to indicate there are no active steps. The item is not yellow anymore because it is not attached to any business process. To illustrate how SyteLine receives PLM data, I have attached a bill of materials to the manual SyteLine send process. This allows us to review the steps and to see that the items are listed in the top section of the center pane. Below we see the SyteLine company. This can be one or several depending on your setup. Once we click the Send to ERP button, the bill of material will be sent to SyteLine.
Okay, so now let's review PLM real-time. I want to take a quick look at some of the things we discussed, but with the working parts in place and the drag and drop ability PLM provides for data and object management. We can review file management and the send to SyteLine process just described. But we'll start out by looking at a bill of material management. This will show us how to build a bill of material within PLM. It's not too hard, and you could do this in many different ways. If you're using some CAD product like AutoCAD or SolidWorks, this will be done for you as you save your bill of material to PLM. Since I don't have CAD on this system, I'll have to create some manual products or some manual items to give us some working material. So I'll create 3 items, and I'll use the first one, and just to clarify, I'm going to put in parent here, as this will be the assembly level. And then underneath, I'm going to call this child 1. And this one will be called child 2. And let's do a save here. Okay, typically when you are doing this type of management, the BOM management within PLM, you want to look at the structure like I was showing before. And what I will do is open up the structure for the parent. Once that appears, we're going to drop that into this little side window here next to the item list. So before I didn't have the related documents, I didn't have the part list, didn't have the word used panes down below before in my screenshots. but now they're going to become a little bit more important as we start to manage and deal with the data within PLM. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to check off the two that I want as the children, and I'm going to take these and just drag them and drop them right on top of the parent. And we're going to save this. And we now see that the children are now underneath the parent. Like I say, you have a couple buttons here if you want to play with them to expand or collapse. Sometimes you need to use a refresh. I will have to use it a little later on. I'll show you when. Okay, so I have undefined as my status, and I cannot send any undefined items to SyteLine. It just simply is not allowed. PLM just rejects it when this happens. So in order for this to occur, what I need to do is go ahead and come back over here. I'm going to check off all three of them, and I'm going to do an items check-in. So now these are released. You notice that my effective from date now is from today. Effective to, of course, is forever because they're all valid parts right now. And if you look over here now, I have these is still showing as undefined. So what I'm going to do over here is just do a refresh. So it picks up the information from this pane, drops it in here. Now you see they're all released. Okay. Now, let's assume I need to make some sort of a change. Let's assume I'm going to make a change to child 2. So I will go in here and do a checkout. And now we see that the first one here, 0001, is now under change because I have this undefined newer revision sitting here as well. And I'm going to refresh here as well, and we should get this color to change to a light blue, like a sky blue. Okay, so this is the indication, and you can see it down here as well. We have an indication that this is now under change. If you notice here, at this point, right now, the parent still has both children, child 2, both revisions are still appearing here as children because of the fact that this is not the undefined item is not released yet. So therefore, both of them do appear. But to understand that if you want to look at the latest release only, then I can do this, and the undefined one will drop off the list. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a check-in. Now you see that the blue now changed to a darker blue to indicate that it is superseded. I'm going back to my item, and we should see down here now 00101 has been replaced by 0002. You notice our effectivity dates for the superseded one now has an end date, and it basically picks up with the second revision at that point. Just to make things interesting, I'm going to check this out one more time and check it back in. Now you see that the second one now is under change, and I'll check this back in, and now I have two superseded item 28 revisions. So going back to the first one, the parent, I now see that I am at 0003. If you notice, I have my find number here, which of course is what SyteLine needs to determine where it fits in the bill of material. I have the quantities if I want to fill out here, and there's a couple other things I can fill out if I need to. I'm just going to take a quick look to make sure everything looks as I should. I have a work center, which is also important, and my warehouse is not filled out, so I'm going to put in main here and main here, and go ahead and save that. Okay, so at this point I'm pretty much ready to send this off to SyteLine. However, I want to do one more thing before that, and that is to go through a file attachment. Now, there are a couple different ways to do this, but for this exercise, I just simply will say I'm going to take this text file and attach it to this new child that I created. So every time I click on a item here, this will refresh and this will refresh because these are related back to whatever I've selected here. These are called secondary or dependent panes upon this independent or primary pane. So this now controls what you see in these other panes here. The item structure, because it is a structure, it's actually autonomous and only works with a single item. You can't go through it because obviously you have your structure below it. If I want to look at something else, then obviously I would close this and click on one of the other ones to look at the structure from this pane. I'm going to take this text file. I'm just going to drag and drop it right into the related documents. What it does is it actually will create a document which houses the file underneath it. And I will show that just a second when I do save. It goes and creates the information based on the default values. And once that is saved, it actually imported the text file into the vault. And we will see here that that file now exists underneath it. Test file.txt. Okay. So let's go ahead and make this thing work with SyteLine. I'm going to right click on my item above here, my parent, and go items and send to ERP. This manual send box comes up because this is the window that normally is used for a manual send. This should not normally be used. Normally you will have the business process itself do all of this for you. You just configure it in the business process to handle this. Here's my parent. I did not attach my children because at this point I have it set up so it goes down through 6 levels on my tree. You know, I could obviously reduce that down to 1 if I just wanted that specific item and nothing else, then I can reduce it to 1. But since I wanted to send with the children, I'm going to go back up to 6. It doesn't make any difference. As long as it's over 2, I'm good. I have my effectivity date, send global alternative items if I want to check that off, send bill of material design for purchase. And of course, here's my company for my SyteLine designation. And I could, if I had more, I would have those there as well. I add that to the list, and I'm going to send to ERP. Okay, so it says it was done. Let's look into SyteLine. Now the first thing I need to do is run the background utility that I have set up right now as a manual process, which is to import and export the XML information. So I'm going to send this off, and it should begin to process the information and create those new items. And let me just check real quick to remember what was the parent number. Parent number is 26. Okay. I'm just waiting to make sure that it does send and complete the bulk import. Otherwise, it may not have all the information there. Now, what it's doing is it's looking at the XML file. It's taking information and is updating the item table, the item rev table, and the job model table. I think I mentioned this before, but that's exactly what it's doing right now. Whatever information is being found in the XML file at this point. Okay, so it looks like we're done. So let's go ahead and let's do a search for 26. Okay, so if I go into my general tab, I should find my warehouse. I should find the location. If I go to the bill of material view, I should have the top level item, an operation of 10, as well as my 2 children now found as materials underneath the operation. I have my work center as well, and obviously some other information. Quantity, units of measure, all that good stuff. So this is basically it. Again, the basic header information for the item can be updated, as well as we can obviously do our revision track if we need to. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to check. So let me check on the other item, and let me look at, let's do a search here again. And I'm going to change this to item. And let's just do a search on item. And let's look at, I think it was 27. I think it was 20, was it 27 that I had updated? 28. 28. All right. Sorry, my mistake. So let's look at 28. And if we notice, here it is. So our revision is actually 0003, which is what I expected. And here's our description as well. So it looks good. This is exactly what I was expecting. And you know, obviously this is a demo environment, so there's a lot of things that are probably not cleaned up, and it's really for me just a matter of being able to create the connection to show that it's more or less, you know, proof of concept that this can be done. Okay, so that is PLM connected to SyteLine. We hope you have learned more about the concept of PLM, and although it may have generated more questions, we are available to answer them on an individual level. To explain a little more about who Rockwell Consults are, we handle full PLM implementations from the ground up to handling upgrades from older versions of PLM or transition from another PLM PDM solution. We also offer a PLM Express package designed for the small to mid-sized company looking to leverage PLM without the hefty price tag. The scope is reduced and some of the decisions are made up front, but all PLM functionality is the same as the full implementation package. We also can perform PLM data backup and review the best approach to handling the large data load that PLM can sometimes create. We also offer data hosting for those that are looking to move to the cloud and remove some of the on-premises requirements. We also can perform admin or end-user training and serve as a second source for support outside of Infor should your situation require. For more information, please visit our website and blog to learn more about PLM. We hope you have enjoyed this presentation and look forward to speaking to you in the future.